Welcome to the Simplified Integration Podcast. This is episode number 23, Being Authentic.
Leonardo da Vinci once said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and I agree. You see, the problem with the way that most consulting groups approach medical integration is anything but simple. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's expensive, it's complicated, and quite frankly, it's exhausting. Enough is enough. There are far too many amazing integrated clinics that are struggling. Well, I'm on a mission to change that. What I've come to find from over 5 years working with integrated practices is that simplicity really is the secret. The old saying of less is more is true. Through a streamlined approach, I was able to create multiple successful 7-figure integrated clinics, and now I'm going to show you how you can do the same. Join me as I share with you the secrets to successful medical integration and practice growth. Join me on a journey to greater sophistication through innovation. I'm Dr. Andrew Wells, and welcome to the Simplified Integration Podcast.
Welcome back. This is episode number 23, Being Authentic. It's great to have you back here, Doc. So if you listen to my podcast, I may sound a little bit different today. That's because I'm not in my normal podcast studio. I'm recording this during the coronavirus epidemic, and we're actually here at our lake house in Lake Lure, North Carolina. This is one of my favorite places in the entire world. We have a little pontoon boat that we come out and cruise around the lake on and relax, and I thought this would be an awesome place to have my podcast studio this week. So I usually record my podcasts in blocks, so I'll record like 4 or 5 at a time. And so I'm out here today recording my podcast. And it's just, I'm not here to avoid the virus. I'm just here because this is a really cool place to relax and get through this really crazy and obnoxious time right now in history. And so I wanted to share this spot with you guys. So if you're listening to this on audio, you're obviously not going to see what I'm seeing, but please check out my YouTube video. I have all my podcasts on YouTube. I'd love for you to check out, to subscribe to that. Number one, you'll get updates as soon as we release new podcast episodes, but also you can see this amazing place. If you guys are ever in the northwestern North Carolina area, please look me up. If you want to come visit, I'd be happy to give you a tour of my hometown, where I live. Not my hometown, but where I live. This is one of my favorite places in the world. I'd be happy to show you around anytime. So I want to talk to you today about the topic of being authentic. And when I was first in practice, I was an idiot, and I didn't really know how to communicate chiropractic that well. And so what I would do is when I was like desperate for patients. Like we ran a mostly cash-based practice, and so we ate what we killed in practice. And my wife and I started off from scratch. We had a 0 patient base. We just opened this office. Borrowed money from my family to get this practice going, and so I really wanted to get it going as quickly as possible, and I did all right. We were successful, but in the beginning, my desperation came off. It was pretty obvious, I think, to patients, because as I think sometimes people tend to do, if you want something, you can sometimes, and I did this, I overstated the expected results. So when patients would ask me, like, they would come in with scoliosis or a back problem, I would be so emphatic, like, yeah, I can help you, and I can fix your scoliosis, and I can definitely help you with your back pain. I'm going to fix you back up to 100%, no problem. And what I learned and I realized was that my skills weren't actually that good. I was a decent adjuster and chiropractor, but I wasn't always getting my patients 100% better, despite the fact that I was telling them that. And I wasn't converting as many patients as I thought I would, due to my inflated confidence. And what I found as I got more mature and more self-aware as I got through practice is that the more brutally honest I was with patients, the higher my conversions were and the better I did as a chiropractor, for a lot of reasons. So I didn't have that, like, once I finally got established in practice and didn't have to worry about paying rent and paying overhead and all that stuff, and I sort of chilled out a little bit and became more relaxed, and that my desperation didn't come off. It wasn't as obvious. And I really, I started to practice being my authentic self, whatever that means. I was more truthful in my communication with patients. I was more truthful in what I expected in terms of outcomes. And I think patients really keyed in on that. And as I went through practice, as my authenticity grew and my confidence grew, I was able to convert patients a lot easier, with a lot less skepticism, a lot less patients quitting care. Because here's the deal, is like patients didn't expect me to perform miracles. They expected me to help them, but they didn't always expect me to get them 100% better. My scoliosis patients didn't expect me to completely straighten out their spine to the point where they didn't have scoliosis anymore. So what I'm saying is that, like, and let me apply this to regenerative medicine, because what I'm seeing right now in regenerative medicine is doctors doing the same thing that I did early on in practice. And what I mean by that is when a patient comes in, they're saying, oh, you've got phase 3 degeneration in your back. If you have this stem cell injection, this is going to fix your back completely. You won't have to have surgery, and you'll feel good for the rest of your life. This will outlive you. Or you have a bad knee, and you take an x-ray, and they have very little joint space left in their knee, and you tell the patient, yep, this is going to regrow the cartilage in your knee. You'll be able to avoid surgery, and you'll be able to go back to your normal daily activities just like you'd never had any knee problem to begin with. So that's what I mean by like overstating claims and not being authentic. Now, some doctors do that because they don't know what to expect with regenerative medicine, and so they're expecting those kind of outcomes, but that's not realistic. And I tended to do that initially when I first started regenerative medicine as well, because I was modeling this off of somebody else who did that, and it just wasn't true. And I've shared this story with you before on a podcast, but I'll share it again because I think it's so relevant. We had a patient come in, and she was very overweight. She was in a motorized scooter, and she had horrible bone-on-bone degeneration in both knees. It was so bad that she couldn't stand up to do dishes. She couldn't do any chores around the house. She felt miserable 24/7, even when she slept. And she was upset because she was putting a lot of this stress on her husband, who was also elderly, and she felt really bad about that. And she was in a really bad spot, and her knees were awful. And I remember taking x-rays of her knees, and I said, listen, I don't think regenerative medicine is going to help you. I think you really need to have knee surgery and have your knees replaced. And she's like, well, that's what my doctor told me, but the problem is I can't have knee surgery. The doctor is, because of the medications I'm on, I'm a huge health risk, and I can't have surgery. So I have no options. And I said, well, listen, this is not an ideal option for you. I don't think it's going to work. And she said, well, if I had the injections, how much would it help? And I said, at a maximum, I think it'll help you 5%. And she started crying, and she said, well, she goes, I think I want to do this. And I said, well, why are you crying? And she said, well, I can't afford it. She goes, and it was to have both of her knees done, it was like $7,200. And I said, well, I understand that's a lot of money, and that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think you should do this, because you're not going to get, at most you get 5% benefit, but it's going to cost you $7,200. And she goes, well, I still want to do it. She said, it'll be a financial stress, but if it'll give me a fraction, if it'll make me feel just a little bit better, I'm in. And so very cautiously, like, I talked to this lady for half an hour, like trying to talk her out of it, and she wasn't having it. And so I'm trying to push her away from it, and she's like, no, I want it. And so we ended up doing it, and we were very transparent with her, and like, look, we're not expecting great results. So she came in like 3 months later for her reevaluation. And she came in, and I'm like she's gonna yell at me. She didn't get any results. And when she came in the room, I came in the room, and she teared up. And I said, well, how are you doing? And she started crying. And I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be a really uncomfortable conversation. And she said, you know what? She goes, I'm so happy I did this. And I said, well, tell me about it. You're obviously still in your motorized wheelchair. Like, what's happened? And she goes, you said at most I would get 5% better. I'd say I'm 10% better. But that 10% has absolutely saved my life. She said, I don't feel like I want to go to sleep and die anymore. I can do some chores around the house. I'm not in constant excruciating pain. She said, I'm still in pain, but it's not unbearable. And she goes, if I hadn't done this injection in my knees, I don't know where I'd be right now. And she goes, thank you for allowing me to do this. And, I think, and that was, that is by far my most memorable regenerative medicine story, not because we had like this fantastic clinical outcome, because reality it didn't help her that much, but for her, that much was the world. It meant everything to her. And I remember like tearing up in the room with her because it made such a difference in her life, and I was really happy for her. I'm going to pause just for a minute because there's a boat going by. I hope you can. I don't know if you can hear this over the boat engine, but my point in saying this is that you don't have to overstate the benefits of a therapy to get a patient to commit to care. That was a mistake I made for years. But the minute I started being truthful, authentic, and like brutally honest, is the moment when my stats went up, my office grew, we were profitable, and so you don't have to be like this snake oil salesman to sell regenerative medicine. And I know a lot of doctors do it that way because they were taught that way, or they think you have to do it that way. And I'm here to tell you, you can run a successful chiropractic business, regenerative medicine business, weight loss business, functional medicine business, just by being brutally honest. Patients want that, they expect it. As a healthcare provider, you should be doing that. We have an ethical responsibility to be honest to our patients without having to be connected to the outcome, the financial outcome of it. So I just wanted to share that story with you, simply because I wasn't always truthful and honest in the way I practiced, because I thought I had to be that way. I thought I had to oversell and underdeliver, even though intuitively, intellectually, I knew that was not right. But out of a sense of desperation for being new in practice, I thought that would help me somehow. And I just realized over time that was not helpful. It was actually quite hurtful to not only my patients but me. And so this is me being very vulnerable, and I hope by sharing this story that you can learn from it as well. So if you're thinking about tackling integration or stem cell therapy, regenerative medicine, I just would urge you to be honest with your patients, and that will pay dividends in a lot of different ways that you may not expect. And so I hope you can take this with just knowing that I've learned from a lot of hardship and trial and error. And so I hope that you know that you can run a regenerative medicine clinic that is not in contrast to your ethics, your morals, and the way that you should practice. So I hope you found this lesson, my story, valuable to you. If you have any questions about integration or how regenerative medicine works, shoot me an email at info@integrationsecrets.com. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast. That way you'll get an email notification every time a new podcast episode comes out. But thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me right now during this coronavirus epidemic. I hope you check out my YouTube channel so you can see this awesome place I get to record my podcast on. So, Doc, hope you're having a great day. God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, innovators. Thanks for listening to the Simplified Integration Podcast. The fact that you're listening tells me that you're like me, someone who loves simplicity. And the truth is, those who embrace simplicity are some of the greatest innovators. So I hope you got a ton of value from what we covered on today's episode. Be sure to subscribe and share with other docs that you feel could benefit from greater sophistication through simplification and innovation. If you've got specific questions that you'd like answered on this podcast, or you've got specific topics that you'd like me to discuss, just shoot me an email at info@integrationsecrets.com. That's info@integrationsecrets.com.